In a normal year, games fall under the radar. Look, big titles come out, people forget about these smaller games. But in a year like 2023, when we have had banger after banger after banger, it's even more normal for these games to fall to the wayside. These 3 AAA games that I'm gonna talk about today all fell under the radar, and it's for one reason or another. They all came out around a very busy time, around absolute massive blockbuster games, and I think all 3 of them suffer from issues themselves. One is an FPS that was quite generic, and when it came out, nobody really played it, nobody bought the game, and unfortunately, over half of the studio have been laid off. And when I did play it, when I got a code, the game just didn't run very well, so I wasn't really enticed to playing much more, even though I could see that it was quite fun. Another game is another first-person shooter, but this time it's a heist game. That is Payday 3. And that game came out with some seriously bad servers. And while this isn't a review, I don't think it really evolved the Payday formula. And the third and the biggest surprise of all of these 3 games is the Crew Motorfest. There's something about this game. It's a Ubisoft open world style game, but you have cars, you have planes, you have boats. And as of last year playing GT7, I've kind of gotten into racing games more than usual, and I started using my wheel on this game, and I just had so much fun. Immortals of Avium looked really good in trailers. It looked like it had really nice particle effects. The game looked flashy, it looked high budget, it had some good actors in it. And the idea of a mage-based first-person shooter is actually kind of cool. Now, leading into it with the trailers, the game did look kind of generic. I mean, it's called Immortals of Avium. It's a pretty generic name. It looked like pretty generic fantasy, kind of like Godfall, very like bombastic and flashy, but it still looked like the game could be very fun. In general, these EA originals have come out to be pretty good games. Like, we have A Way Out, we have It Takes Two, and even though I've never played them, apparently Unraveled is supposedly a very good game as well. So I think EA are doing something really good here, where they're giving these lesser teams bigger budgets to make these really cool, interesting games. And unfortunately, my first impressions of Immortals of Avium wasn't very good. When we look at Immortals of Avium here, you can see that the game actually looks really good. Like, the graphics are very good, and you can see here with these sort of particle effects and everything, the game is just very flashy, very fun. It has a grappling hook that you can pull enemies towards you, which I really like. But my first impressions of playing this game was that the story was pretty generic. I know I'm going to use generic a lot talking about this game, because that is like the choice word, where it's about like 2 factions that have been fighting for years over this war or something, and basically it's gotten to the stage where it's been going on for so long that nobody actually knows why they're fighting, okay? And you have these weird soldiers fighting against each other with these magic gauntlets. And then when you get into sort of the writing of the game, it's very Marvel, which I personally don't like. Now, I don't really think it's a massive problem. It's more just, you know, I kind of roll my eyes at it. But in general, it's like an acceptable level of high quality-ish writing that I think is like, you know, it's not overly offensive. I don't think I'd ever really turn a game off for it, but I also probably would never really give a game a lot of credit for it, unless it's something like, I think God of War Ragnarok is probably the best example of Marvel style writing in the game. And I realize that a lot of these issues that I talk about in these videos sometimes doesn't fully come across through watching it, and you have to play it. But if you can see, this game does not run smooth. It has never ran smooth for me. The opening sequence is ridiculously just all over the place. And as you can see here, this game does not hold a consistent frame rate, and it never does. And the problem is that this game has already been patched. So when I got a code for this game, it came out a bit later. I got the code a bit later than when the game came out. And I loaded it up, and I assumed that if I played it then, I would have gotten a patched version that was, you know, less bugs, which I haven't noticed any bugs, but less bugs and better performance. But that isn't the case. And the issue is, only a couple of days ago, or like last week or something, the game got another patch that apparently stabilized the frame rate. And if this is a post-patch stabilized frame rate, then I don't think I could ever really play this game. It's a first-person shooter. First-person shooters cannot have frame drops. Unless, like, if you're on the Switch and you're playing like a game and you're kind of expecting it, but I'm not. This is a PS5. This game should run at 60 FPS on a PS5. But as you can see here, just moving around, the frame rate just does not hold consistent. And also, I don't know if they're using FSR or something like that, but there is plenty of noticeable artifacting on specifically the character models, like when you look at hair. Now, I know that isn't specific to this game, that happens with FSR, but like this frame rate just isn't good. And unfortunately, I think that's the main reason why I won't be finishing this game. Because of that, I just can't get into a first-person shooter that has really, really bad frame rate, because it's probably, I mean, let's be real, there's obviously multiplayer games are one thing. There you need to have a consistent frame rate, but first-person shooters, single-player first-person shooters and platformers are probably the two genres that need smooth frame rates the most. And yeah, unfortunately, this game just doesn't have it. And now I have only played like 2 hours of it. I've played the opening sequence, and this is kind of the after the opening sequence, but it just isn't compelling me to go forward. I can see this game has some fun in it, but the fact that the frame rate is so bad, it's just annoying. And unfortunately for Ascendant Studios, after this game came out and it flopped, like there are some reports that this game potentially sold less than 100,000 copies. This is a big budget game. I know Ascendant Studio said that their staff was about 80 people. So it's a relatively large studio, and these have relatively high budget. You can see in the mocap and the facial capture and some of the actors that they have. This game did have, you know, it had a budget, and there's some reports that this game sold less than 100,000 copies. We can't be too certain, but it didn't do well. And it didn't do well in anything. The reviews didn't get good views. I didn't really see many people streaming it. It just seems that this game came out and it wasn't even a flash in the pan, which is unfortunate, because I do think this game does have something to it where it could have been good. And I think in another year, maybe at a different time, if it came out in a different time, this might have been okay and, you know, reached the 1 million copy sold threshold. But unfortunately, I can't recommend this game, even though I would like to be able to, because generally I like to support these sorts of games, these smaller games, new IPs that have some interesting ideas, but the game just doesn't run smoothly on PS5, so I just can't recommend it right now. Payday 3 is a game. That's all I can really say about it. If you've played Payday 2, then I think you know what to expect with this sort of game. So for anybody that doesn't know, Payday is a heist game. So you load into a level with either AI, 3 other AI, or 3 other people online, and say you're pulling off a heist in a jewelry shop. So what you have to do is you start out on the street, and you are just a normal civilian to everybody around. And you have to go in and kind of sneak around and figure out where the cameras are. Maybe you have to find where a password is, how to unlock a safe. Maybe you need to locate where the manager is, because they might have a key that can open a door. Or you can go in the other way where, you know, you can lock pick doors to get in the back of the shop or something like that. And then once you get caught, all hell breaks loose. Basically, you put on these masks, which I think is really cool. It kind of looks like, you know, something like the Joker from The Dark Knight. And then you pull off a heist. And as you're doing this, there's loads of different things going on. You know, there's alarms going off, there's cameras, there's security guards that you have to deal with, and then there's civilians, say, in the shop that you can take hostage. You can use them as human shields. So there's a lot going on. And now, while I didn't get, like, super big into Payday 2, I played a fair bit of it on Steam years ago. I really enjoyed it. And this game, to me, as a casual player of Payday 2, feels just more Payday. It doesn't feel like they, you know, overhauled the experience. I don't really think it feels any higher budget. I don't really think the gunplay is overly amazing. The game doesn't look overly amazing either, which is fine, because that's not what they're going for. This is a game that was in Game Pass, which is a great place for it. But I think as somebody, now I got a code for this, but if I had to pay for this game, I'm not sure how I'd feel about it, because one thing I realized playing this game now is that when I played Payday 2 back in the day, I played with my cousin, who we used to always play games together, and we had a great time. It was very fun, because we had, you know, we had people to bounce ideas off. Oh, they're coming in from the window. Okay, you defend that window. I'll go over here. I'll hack this safe. I'll do this, and then you're coordinating stuff. But I played this game completely solo. Well, not solo, but with random people. And yes, there is voiceover, but I don't really like talking to people online, random people. Unless it's in VR, I just never do it. And unfortunately, I think this game, if you don't have friends to play with, just isn't worth it. I did not enjoy any time playing this game by myself, because I can see the levels are well designed. Like, there's loads of them. There's one where you're breaking into this, like, nightclub, and it has this really cool mechanic where you need to get a code for a safe. But to get the code for a safe, you have to find codes littered throughout the level, and then you have to use like a UV light to discover like which buttons were used on the keypad, and then you have to like basically trial and error figure out which is the key, which is really cool. And then there's other things with the UV light where you have to steal a painting, but the real painting is one that has blood mixed in with the paint, and the only way you can do that is by shining a UV light on it. And it has, I enjoy the levels. I think they're nice and diverse, but when you don't have that communication and you're not playing with someone you know, I think this game just isn't that fun, because I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of hard to realize what's going on when there's 3 other people doing stuff around you, because the game doesn't do a great job at kind of announcing when things happen. It will say something, but it will give you no indication of where it happened. Like, oh, this guy hacked the safe. But it doesn't like flash up and show where it was. You're just like, oh, my teammate is off in another room hacking a safe. But I don't know where they are, and I don't know exactly what they're doing. And just the solo experience just isn't very fun. And then when you take into account everything else, from a gameplay side, I don't really think the guns feel great. There's this really annoying hit marker noise when you shoot somebody that just makes the game sound cheap, to be honest. And while this is by no means a review, because I haven't played enough of the game, I just can't really see myself playing any more of this game after this video, because yeah, it's just, as a solo experience, I don't really like it as much as I did when I played Payday 2. And funnily enough, Payday 2 kind of like skyrocketed after this game came out. Like, there's like still 40,000 people in game right now playing this game, which is just absolutely insane. And I think it shows the lasting power of these games, because to me, again, I haven't beaten the game, but looking at all the levels, I've played all bar 2, and it seems like there's not that much content. I could be wrong, maybe you unlock stuff after, but for the amount of levels that I've played, this game doesn't have too much content from what I've played. And I think this sort of a game is a slow burn. Like, when I got into Payday 2, it was years after it came out, and there was so much content. So I think this sort of game is like, 2 or 3 years down the line, when there's loads of DLC added, there's new missions, there's new weapons. I will admit there's loads of weapons, there's loads of stuff like that, but this game just really didn't entice me right now. Finally, we have the Crew Motorfest, which I got a code for, and to be honest, I had way more fun in this game than I thought I would ever have. Basically, the Crew Motorfest is a Ubisoft-style open-world game, but you can drive a car, you can fly a plane, you can go on a boat, and there's loads of different events to do. There's just loads of content here that you can partake in different sorts of races. And I think one of my favorite parts about this game is that there's loads of different events. So there's, say, a string of events and races that are to do with Japanese car culture. They actually got some guy to like record videos, a real life guy that like works on Japanese car mods, and he kind of takes you through the history of stuff. And last year, Gran Turismo 7 did a really good job at sort of teaching you the history of cars and like, the history of Japanese hatchbacks, the history of American cars and stuff like that. And this game definitely has a flavor of that, because like, I mean, they're bringing in real people who are like massive in car culture to explain different things and show off like Japanese car mods and stuff, which is just really cool. And then there's another set of events that are all to do with like American classic cars. And when you're driving in them, you're driving in like Cadillacs and stuff, but there's no GPS in the car because it's an old style car. And to get around the map, you actually just have pictures of where to go. So like down the bottom right, you will have like, oh, turn right at this like garage, or turn left at this sign. And they have like this classic music playing as you're driving around. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show the music because it's licensed, but it's just really cool. And one thing I really appreciate about this game is that I'm having a lot of fun just dipping in and out. It's not super hardcore. It's actually quite casual, and it almost has, I guess, kind of RPG mechanics similar to other Ubisoft games where, in Gran Turismo 7, when I was upgrading my car, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't understand, and that's fine because, I mean, GT7 is a sim game, and, it's built for all these people that understand what, having all this torque and lowering your suspension and all this crap. But in this game, they kind of break it down into how RPGs do it, where, you have green, blue, purple, orange, rarity, like brake pads and suspensions and stuff, and that's how you upgrade your cars. And it's a way easier system for me to understand. Again, if you're into sim racing, it's probably annoying, but for someone like me, I really enjoy it. So when the crew won, they went with like this sort of smaller version of the US. It was like a full map of the US where you could drive from coast to coast, which was a cool idea, but the game just kind of felt a bit lifeless, to be honest. But here they went with a more curated, smaller map, which I really appreciate, because I think that's one of the biggest criticisms you can level at Ubisoft games, is that their maps are way too big, except for obviously Assassin's Creed Mirage, but in general, their maps are way too big, and I much prefer this because the game felt more manageable. Now, actually, talking about this game, you can see that it honestly, I think the game looks really good. The car models look brilliant. It's obviously nowhere near as what like Forza or GT can do, but, you know, this is obviously an open world, so there are certain things you have to take into account. One criticism I will level at this game is that there are people chatting in your ear all the time, all day, every day, just random people. Sometimes it's good, you know, background into different types of cars or different types of car culture, but the majority of the time it's crap that I do not give a single flying crap about, because, you know, the characters just aren't very interesting, and I don't know why any game would try. Now, I am using a controller here, which I will admit I am even worse with it. I'm terrible at racing games, but I'm even worse with a controller than I am with a wheel. I don't know why. The wheel just makes you feel a lot better. But one of the coolest features of this game is that, like, you can use your map. Like, let's bring up the map here. So when you go into the map, I just want to show off. As you can see, this is a way more manageable map. It's, like, relatively small. There's, like, sea, air, and land stuff. But you don't really need to go into your map too often, because there's this AI system in it that is called, I'm waiting for this, it's called Kara, and that's your AI. And you can just pull it up at any time, and you can swap between different playlists that you want, and then you can set waypoints. So I can remove the waypoint for that, even though that's the one I'm doing. So if I set the waypoint, it just takes me straight to it. You can also like fast travel to different points on the map that you find, so you don't have to drive. And then you also come into these crap. Oh, will I be able to do this? Yeah, like I got that speed trap. There we go. And everything just sort of works towards upgrading your car, leveling up. Like, as you can see there, I'm getting XP. And like, you know, since this isn't a review, so I'm not really concerned about, you know, talking about the levels and is the game well balanced, because to be honest, I don't really care about that in this game. I'm literally just, I've probably played this game maybe 8 to 10 times, and each time just dipping in, playing a race or two, and then just leaving it. I'm not taking this game very serious. I'm not dealing with, like, you know, I'm not dealing with doing all the season pass stuff. I'm not worrying about trying all this crap. But here you can see I'm going to attempt. Attempt is the main word. A drifting event, which I haven't played this game in like a week, so I'm going to be really bad. But another great thing as well is that you can take this, you can make this as serious as you want. Like, you can put it up all the way to 5 difficulty, and it'll give you more XP and more money and stuff, and also, but it also increases how much points you need. And then you can change all the other crap like auto steer and rewind, stuff like that. So it's a great casual experience, which I think is exactly what this sort of a game needs to be. So let's see. I have a Mazda RX-7, and we'll see if I can do drifting. I don't think I will be able to, but I will certainly try. Can I skip this? No. But this is when, like, this Made in Japan stuff is where they brought in that Japanese guy that was into the car mod scene. I actually went onto his Instagram page just to see who he was. I never heard of him. But it's just cool. And I mean, this car looks cool. We shall see if I can actually drift. The ground is nice and wet, which is nice. So let's see. We shall go into this corner here and start to drift. Okay. See, okay, I will admit, I find it easier to drift with a controller, but driving normally with a wheel I find easier. I don't know why. It's like the wheel just feels better. Okay, I've gotten exactly 2,000 points. That's always good. See, I don't have enough speed going into these corners, I don't think. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that was a decent drift there. But the Crew Motorfest is a really nice casual experience. I mean, Ubisoft games go on sale very often. So probably by the time this video comes out, this game could probably be like 40 or 50 euro in like your local GameStop or Best Buy or Target or one of them American shops. Because Ubisoft games typically go on sale quite often. And I think at that price, this game is fun. It's a great arcade racer. It is. It's a very fun arcade racer that I really enjoy. Again, treating it completely casually. but there's loads of content if you really want to get into it, but I don't really know how the game holds up there, so I'm not the person to come for that. Watch that Australian guy from IGN if you want that, because he is brilliant at making reviews. He's very funny and he does very good racing reviews. But yes, there were 3 games that fell under the radar. I wonder, has anybody played them? I'm sure people have played them. I know Payday 3 was on Game Pass, so, you know, that one probably has a high chance of people playing it. Immortals of Avium, nobody really bought that game. And The Crew is probably a game that sold more than I think a lot of us probably realise, because Ubisoft games always just sell well. And I don't fully understand it. Sometimes they make really good games. But yes, I really appreciate you watching. This was a new format, so, I mean, I'm going to keep testing this out, see how it goes. But I really appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you all in the next video. Goodbye.